noticing a pattern, and I think it's something that's worth mentioning. Going back the 5 or 6 years that I've been here on YouTube talking to people about intelligent design and evolution, I'm always seeing that the people who come into the rooms, they're very confident, and actually they're overconfident. And when I talk to these people, it seems to me that the only reason that they have to be confident is that there are a lot of popular assertions that are thrown around here on YouTube. And there's a lot of peer pressure in the direction of pushing secular thoughts, pushing secular ideals. And I think that when push comes to shove and we're speaking to these evolutionists, they don't really know how to think for themselves. And the question I have to ask myself is, are you here on YouTube to actually understand your opponents, to actually understand the other side? Or is it that you just heard something that you thought was impressive from a well-known atheist here online or well-known evolutionist here online, and you just, fancy yourself as someone that's smart, and you want to repeat what they said? Because that's what I'm getting from these people. It's like they don't want to listen to us. The last Brigade Evolutionists, I was trying to keep myself away from the mic. I didn't want to hog the mic too much. How this guy's burnt out with the community, as what he does here online, I don't know. But from our side, I think we got legitimate reasons to be burnt out, because our side, we legitimately want to have discussion. For the longest time, we've been the ones that have been trying to talk and have debates and make videos dealing with debate. You got the TST and those trash talking shows over there, this Dumb Effort of the Year award. That's what we tend to see. All you want. But my theology, my personal beliefs, even if you were to attack that, would have nothing to do with the intelligent design argument. So the intelligent design argument would stand firm. I mean, and that's the thing about it. This pattern of every discussion I have with these people, no matter whether they're laymen or they're scientists, it's the same thing. No one's got a refutation towards intelligent design. And these people here online that we speak to who aren't scientists, notice they're just repeating things from people like Alan Ra or people like, PZ Myers. And when you explain to them this isn't a refutation, when you explain to them, the intelligent design argument isn't Pele's watchmaker because of, X, Y, and Z, they don't know what to say to you. You see those phases of awkward silences because they don't know what to say. They saw a very cocky video that some atheists made, some evolutionists made, where they did a lot of fancy editing, and they were persuaded, but there's nothing there. There's no thought process, it seems like, they put into this issue, and it really just makes me more firm on my stance on intelligent design, and more committed to pointing out, look, at evolution really doesn't have anything. Like, all BS aside, I know we all tend to stick to our little cliques here online, and it's atheism versus theism, creationism versus evolution, but real talk, evolution doesn't have anything going for it. It doesn't have anything going for it at all. There's a lot of hot air, a lot of big talk about what evolution has done and can do, but when you investigate it, evolutionary theory has no real connection to a lot of what they're claiming has helped us progress in science. And intelligent design in no way, shape, or form is discredited in any way, shape, or form at all from being a science, to the point where they're starting to be silenced. Because if they're not in here to have a discussion, they can criticize us all day long. I mean, I'll engage with them if they want to criticize my arguments or things that I've said. But if it gets to the point to where, where it's been lately, especially in the last couple of years, it's just really just on a decline the last couple of years, actually. But why engage with them? Why engage with somebody who's just going to spit on you and curse you out and treat you like garbage? There's no reason for that. They think we have to deal with that. And hopefully maybe if all of us on our side of the community continue to ignore them, Maybe in the future, when we decide to engage with them again, they'll understand. Look, I don't care. You can disagree with our beliefs and our views all day long. That's fine. We want discussion, but you are going to show respect and not pretend or think that because people have beliefs that differ from your own, that you have the right to degrade or talk to people however you want. It's just something that they need to get that in their head, because they all have this attitude about them to where people like us don't have to be respected. It doesn't matter who it is, really. I mean, just if you're over here on this side of the community and you talk about your beliefs for what they are, then you're not going to be respected. I may make this an open room just to let people come in and talk if they want to. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too involved. I don't want to get involved in drama. I think that the community really has gotten to the point where people don't want to talk to each other anymore. And it's something that I was hoping would change, but I honestly think that it's for the better. If these guys don't want to actually have discussion, if it just wants to get to the point where they want to name call and just treat people like garbage, why? Why would anybody want to talk to them? Why? Okay, so we're getting the trolls in the comment section now. The funny thing about it is that my coherent points, it seems like a lot of my incoherent points, people think that I don't make, or that I'm making. The philosophers of science, like Stephen C. Myers, says the same thing. Scientists on the other side, like Craig Venter, says the same thing. People in the community, like Brandon, say the same thing. Other people in the community who are outspoken and come to these hangouts say the same thing. You don't refute anybody by playing stupid and saying, oh, well, you know what you're saying is incoherent. So I'm rehearsing Behe's failed arguments. What is it? Is it that my arguments are incoherent? They can't understand my argument because it's incoherent, or I'm rehearsing Behe's failed arguments. I guess I can't have it both ways. So Del Monte's revenge is obviously that's a sock account, but Dan Occam's barber. It's kind of funny how we're seeing conflicting statements there. Is it that you don't understand my argument because it's incoherent, or you understand my argument is coming from ID proponents that we can't refute? Dover trial. Did you hear what I said about the Dover trial earlier? Like, you realize by bringing up a Dover trial, that's not a refutation to intelligent design at all. The Dover trial was a court case. It was a court case that had to deal with a couple of people over in Dover that thought that there should be an equal playing field with teaching creation and ID, and that's not the scientific process. There's been hundreds of schools all over the southwestern states who have won court cases in which they are able to actually teach creation science. So telling me that one judge in the middle of a small dinky town ruled in favor of the evolutionists, in which there was a lot of, obviously, if anybody followed the case, the judge didn't understand anything that was going on. I think that he was overwhelmed because the evolutionists, they got involved with so many different organizations. They got all these big name people in to offer their case. And when you look at why he accepted the side of the evolutionists, all he really did was copy and paste. If you guys read it, if you read the rulings of the case, he copied and pasted pretty much everything that the evolutionists were saying. His reason, because first of all, if you look at the Establishment Clause, and he has something to get into this again, But the idea is with the Establishment Clause and the First Amendment is that religious teachings or religion and government are not supposed to be involved. And the problem is with that is that I think when the Constitution was put together in 1789, 11 years later, George Washington, who oversaw the 55 members who wrote the Constitution, so he oversaw the putting together the Constitution. He actually used churches or federal money and the military that they had at that time, if you would like to call them a military, to run churches and to promote religious activity. So the point is that what all of us really hung on with the Dover trial was this idea of the Establishment Clause. And the reality of the situation is that if we're going to go by what American law actually is, historically speaking, the founders of this country who put together that Establishment Clause, if you want to put it like that, or the First Amendment, actually were doing exactly that. The entire reason for the Establishment Clause or the First Amendment, really, I should say the First Amendment, was to separate the enforcement of government on religious activity so that things didn't turn out the same way that they were in England. That's why when you read the First Amendment, look at the context of it. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or this, that, or the other. It's prohibiting what Congress can't do. So if Congress gets involved with any teachers inside of the classroom that is going to be teaching their students something that might be attached to some sort of religious activity, or if there's governmental agencies that are involved in praying, or if students wanted to bring their Bible to school and pray in school, or the faculty inside of a school wanted to pray, and the government got involved, they were prohibiting the free exercise thereof. They were violating their First Amendment. There is no separation of church and state in the sense that people are not capable of reading the Bible in classrooms, or public figures are not capable of reading the Bible in public places, because that's a violation historically of what the First Amendment was there for. I mean, the people who put together the First Amendment did exactly that. And science is failing like they're failing. And the guy, like last Sunday, where he was playing dumb over this issue of vestigial organs, I know in his own mind he thinks that he's being clever, and you guys playing stupid in the comment section, you think you're accomplishing something there, but there are people who watch this that are not part of your group or my group, who are listening to this from the outside in, these discussions from the outside in. They don't look at me like I'm ignorant when I'm explaining to this guy, oh, well, you know what, there are actually articles that have to do with that are related to cancer, and this guy's trying to like mock it off and just like, yeah, whatever. I'd like to see that. And then we give him that article and he's still playing dumb. It shows that, the people who we're speaking to, they're not open at all. They say it because, that's the noble thing to say. If you're going to pretend that you're an open-minded person that's just open to reason and logic and crap, that's something you're going to say. But with their actions and how they respond and react, I think people can clearly see that there's really nothing at all being offered by the evolutionists. I don't think I narrow down everything in the discussion to the mechanism. I always talk about that. I always repeat myself over and over and over again. So we get past all the interpretation of evidence and information. We get right down to it. Can the accumulation of changes actually do these things? Is it actually a real phenomena in nature? And people see over and over and over again that, wait a minute, we don't really have a reason to believe that evolution can do this. What is the reason why? Yeah, I've heard about the fossil record. Yeah, I've heard about genetics, but there are several options on the table. There are multiple conclusions that can be derived from this data, but who's actually justified? And they see at the end of the day, when we're talking about this, we are. Well, I mean, look at this. I mean, this is what will be keeping up with the Dover trial. That's their responses to a scientific argument. That's their responses. What a judge said in the middle of some small town in which he clearly didn't understand the topic. He copied and pasted all of the reasoning from the evolutionist side. It doesn't seem like there was a whole lot of judgment and the guy actually trying to discern what is science and what isn't science. If you read his findings and his rulings, it was just a direct copy and paste from the opponents of design. So it wasn't a scientific process at all. This guy in the comment section is trying to use the Dover trial. Ignore the fact that there are hundreds of schools out there that have actually made equal time for creation science over the last 15 years or so. I mean, even Ken Hovind, he's made it public, and I'm not a young earth creationist, but he's made it public. He's fought this in the classrooms, and he's won a lot of cases and a lot of ground in getting creationism taught in some of the public classrooms as well. So we can play this game with what happened with the Dover trial, but in comparison to what creationism has been doing all over the states, I know you guys don't like to talk about the inconvenient information. You're losing in that end too. But again, that doesn't mean creationism is true, just like it doesn't mean that evolution is true, because some people may allow certain beliefs or views to be taught inside of the classroom. It has to do with what is science. And when we get down to the nitty gritty, it doesn't matter if it's me speaking to a scientist or a layman or anything like that, or any of the people on our side of the community. You see the same exact responses and reactions when you get an intelligent design advocate or scientist on our side speak to the scientists or evolutionists on your side. You guys always fail. It doesn't matter who you speak to. If it's Stephen C. Meyer, a philosopher of science, or Dembski, or some geneticist on the ID side, who's qualified in their area of study and in their field, and they're speaking to somebody else who's qualified in their area of study and their field, and they're talking about the evidence and the facts and who's actually got it. You guys are always losing. So I mean, that's what's funny about it. When you hear that a lot too here online, well, they're not scientists. Who should we listen to? Because this guy over here is trying to talk about science and down talking everybody like he's got the information and the science and all that other crap, but he's not a scientist. And they're usually referring to all of us, not just one of us. But who cares? 99% of these people we speak to aren't scientists. But if you ignore what we say and you ignore what they say, just the people here online that aren't scientists, pay attention to the people who are scientists. Pay attention to the people who are philosophers on our side. You don't see anything different. I mean, when they're speaking to scientists, when our scientists are speaking to your scientists, it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. So, I mean, that's what I love about it. I mean, I know I'm right. And I know that a lot of people who are listening know that I'm right too. But going back to this, the title of this hangout, Evolution is Resistance at All Costs, you guys don't seem to have any legitimate grounds to reject what I'm saying to you. This guy's bringing up the Dover trial. He keeps on asserting ID still failed. No, you know how intelligent design fails? Intelligent design fails when you refute the inductive argument that is presented to you. That's it. If you can't do that, it's never going to fail. If you attack other arguments that you want to manufacture on the spot, you can attack your bastardized version of intelligent design, but remember, your bastardized version of intelligent design, not the actual argument of intelligent design. That's what people like Dave S. and a lot of people in this community don't get. You don't answer questions the way that those questions need to be answered, they're never going to go away. Hell, you'll have probably a bunch of other trolls in the comment section because there's a lot of negativity towards these views here online, because atheism is a popular thing here on YouTube. Evolution is a popular thing here on YouTube. But even though you're going to get that support in the comment section, it's void of any substance. It's just empty of any actual thought and reasoning. It's just a large group of people who hate what intelligent design stands for because they understand that the implications of intelligent design is religious friendly, and they hate religion, and they have a lot of negative emotions towards religion because they feel that they were lied to growing up after they've been misled by some idiot here on the internet that probably knew just as much as they did or even less about the Bible. Um, that's just the truth. Because the truth is that out of all the arguments that I've heard for design, all the arguments that I've heard for design or for theology or philosophy or presuppositionalism, like cosmological argument, there's a lot of arguments out there for theism and for design and for Christianity. But the one argument that seems to never be refuted, you don't even really have to think about it anymore, really, is intelligent design. I mean, yeah, we've got the facts, we've got the evidence. Fact is, we got everything on our side. That's why I think it's important to actually talk about this here on YouTube too, because just like a lot of these other ideas in science over the last couple of decades, I mean, you had this idea of epicycles, heliocentric models. You had all these different views over the last 100 years, hundreds of years. The problem is that for every idea and view in science that they thought was the dominant view, that they thought was fact, that they thought was legitimate, even though that there was conflicting information, it wasn't because of the scholars at the time learning about it and understanding, okay, well, there are problems with it because this new finding shows that there are problems with it. Usually the problems are fought against and resisted with a lot of cognitive dissonance and so on. But you have to present new information. People have to constantly bring up that information so that a new generation of people are not going to be indoctrinated with those typical held beliefs. They could, evaluate, okay, this is what people believed before, and here's this new information that these people are not seeming to, be able to come to grips with. So I think that that's the point here. I think that talking about this here on YouTube, and maybe there's some kids that are listening to us, or somebody that might be going to college and listening to this, as you continue to talk about this, that is the new generation of people who are going to listen to your side, and then they're going to be, you'll have more and more people in the long run who are going to end up accepting this view for what it is. It's kind of like that saying, men are made of iron, children are made of clay. You can't really do anything with somebody who's been hardened and already have a lot of indoctrinated beliefs. You can't really do anything with them because they've already got their views. They think that they know the answer already. But with people that are a bit, they're the fresher crop, I should say, they're more open to new information because they haven't had somebody cram ideas into their head. That's the way that these old ideas are going to pass away, by getting a new crop of people in that are going to be a little bit more open. I think that's the problem we're seeing right here with evolutionary theory anyways. I mean, I remember when I was going to school, specifically hearing the Miller experiment be talked about like it was a fact. Like, specifically, it talked about how the amino acids that were built, they're the building blocks of life, and they showed how life can come from non-life. So that's what they do. They indoctrinate the kids to believe evolution. They don't present the information in evolution to teach the kids to critically think. They are brainwashing kids to believe this. And, I think that's the reason why even when we talk to scientists, we see the same thing that we see when we talk to them, that we see when our scientists on the intelligent design talk to them. There are no answers for these questions. They don't have answers for these questions. Some of them admit what we're talking about is true. This is code. You're on YouTube, you got these stubborn trolls who don't want to listen, they'll deny it. But you got the scientists like Craig Venter, who's actually dealt with this information, genetic information, or other scientists, they'll say the same thing about the data. So well, see, I doubt this guy ever actually looked into this, because he said he won't be going back to court with the idea ever again. keep in mind that the ID proponents didn't ever want to get involved in the court case. They were, unfortunately, had to get involved because of all these evolutionist organizations that got involved and sued these teachers who wanted equal time for creation science. But basically, the only reason why they won the court case was because of this misunderstanding of the First Amendment. That's it. That's what evolutionists have been doing for years, or atheists, I'm sorry, have been doing for years. A lot of these secular organizations have used the what is in their mind the Establishment Clause, separation of church and state, to say, oh well, no, you can't teach it in the classroom because it's religion. It's a political tool. That's all it's there for. It's not in any way, shape, or form a refutation of what is science or isn't science. It's just a tool used to try to silence the opposition. Because let's just face it, that's what it was all there for. That Dover trial was there to silence the opposition. The evolutionists have a very firm religious belief that evolution is true and valid, and they hate and cannot stand creationism. So they wanted to censor the opposition because they didn't want that in the classroom. That's all that had to do with was censorship. And hell, if we're going to be teaching abiogenesis in the classroom, and we are teaching them in the classrooms, I remember specifically being taught that in the classroom, then why not intelligent design? Because abiogenesis is not rooted in any science at all. Got this guy over here. They didn't want BS taught in the classroom, but that's just an assertion. Love you a long time, and I suspect I know who that is. If you come in here, you can't back that up. You can't. Just be real here. Just an assertion. It's just an assertion from somebody who hates an idea that they don't prefer. That's it. It comes down to what science is, when it comes down to what facts are. Reality is that we got that in spades. And you guys can't refute that. I mean, look at everybody we've been speaking to the last couple of weeks. And Bring It Evolutionists. I got to go in every Sunday now, and I guarantee you, every single week, for the entirety of the time that we have Bring It Evolutionists running, it's always going to be the same thing. There's not one person, whether scientist or layman, who will be able to answer the questions that are directed to them. The very basic questions, too. And like seeing whether or not the mechanisms of evolution can account for the complexities that they claim that they can account for. If evolutionary theory is a science, and it's got a legitimate scientific model, it's based on a legitimate scientific model, then they should be able to account for the diversity of changes accumulating to whatever given anatomical feature we're pointing out at the time, arising through the mechanisms of evolution. So reality is, it's not science. Mate. Mate. This guy thinks he's clever, huh? Just watch it, guys. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that no matter who we speak to, you'll never hear anybody be able to show that the mechanisms of evolution. Let me put it like this: there's not an evolutionist listening, or an evolutionist ever that you're going to hear, and any of my brain evolutionists be able to account for any major anatomical feature that we would point out above the genus. Guarantee you that. The only thing you'll ever hear anybody show are proteins or structures that might share homology with another structure. Why would anybody want to try to start a trial, dude? This guy's saying, why don't all the ID people start a new trial if you think it's real? Why would, I mean, are you not listening? They didn't start the trial to begin with because of the fact they're concerned with science. And what is this, the 15th, 14th century? I mean, you're just going to declare what is true and valid if the government or the rulers at that time declare something as being true or not true? You see what I mean, though, guys? Going back to what I'm saying here, resistance at all costs. We got people in the comment section here now that are doing everything I'm saying. They're not attacking intelligent design as science. They're bringing up things like the Dover trial because they don't have a refutation. They don't. They say a lot of negative things about it. That's crap. It's BS. We don't want BS taught in classrooms. Who can prove that? Who can prove that it's BS anyways to begin with? It's BS because they heard some atheist here on YouTube that they thought was clever, and they said so. That's pretty much what it comes down to. There's no thought process going into this. It's just they've watched a lot of YouTube videos or heard a lot of atheists give lectures on the topic, and they were convinced of it. And unfortunately, everything I'm saying to them is going through that filter. They're not going to process what's being said, even though it's true. They're not going to try to think in their mind, okay, what is science, what isn't science, what qualifies as science, what doesn't qualify as science. They're going to try to dissect it and deal with the topic instead of just going to throw assertions. Yeah, I do. I think that intelligence is a mechanism. You're right. Because mechanism is a driving force. You don't have an entity that can think, that has superior intelligence, that deterministic foresight to understand each component goes here, here, and here, so you have overall function. You're not going to have that thing built. That's the entire point. You remove intelligence, that you're just dealing with inanimate substances or non-thinking physical phenomena, trying to get something going. I mean, it's not even trying, because trying is a word that implies that an intelligence is behind it, trying to get something to go. It's that driving force. So that's the problem there. What do you think why do you think abiogenesis can't get things going? Abiogenesis can't get things going because they're suspecting and believing that the laws of physics and chemistry on their own can arrange all sorts of substances and components to come together and to build something as complex as a cell. At least that's the most basic needed, way of functioning. You don't know what a mechanism is. You don't even understand what a mechanism is. Mechanism is intelligence. Mechanism in evolution is what? Several different ways of how something is done. It is the driving force. There's several driving forces in evolution. Problem is that there's no evidence for any of those driving forces producing the effect. So the cause, which is the claim of these driving forces, horizontal gene transfer, vertical gene transfer, mutation, gene duplication, whatever, was just assertions. But those causes have never been known to produce the effect, what we're seeing inside of the cell. So, with this is just basic. Basic understanding of a mechanism. We got this guy not understanding what a mechanism is. So, obviously we got some trolls in the comment section. Consider what these trolls are saying. I got a 2-hour run ahead of me, so I'm going to end this thing out in like 10 minutes. But What you guys just think about that, guys? Does bravery beat the enemy? No guns do. Not even sure what you're trying to say, dude. I don't even want to say though, Jake, that it's misunderstood. I don't think that intelligent design is misunderstood. Because when we're talking to these people in these rooms, they don't want to understand what we're saying. They don't want to listen to us. I always say the same thing again and again. Look, I'm fine. You don't have to agree with me. It's all well and good. You don't have to agree with intelligent design. But when you respond to it, respond to the argument. And that leads me to believe that they understand the argument. They just don't like it. But they can't refute it as the argument is laid out. So, I mean, you got things like Dave S. Just make up your own argument of intelligent design and attack that while just declaring, well, it's because your argument is crappy, it's horrible. We wouldn't get away with something like that. Oh, yeah, I mean, I see your argument of evolution, but because it's crappy, I'm just going to rewrite it. Because it's crappy. I say it's crappy, so it's a crappy argument. So I'm just going to rewrite it, and I'm going to attack the new argument that's actually better. But either way, it fails, because it's for evolution, Obviously, we wouldn't get away with something like that. But this is something that Dave has. He thinks he's clever by doing that. I mean, out on that, though. Dave, Brandon's called him out on that. Antonio's called him out on that. Cliff Stamp, he's called him out on that. I mean, he's just stupid. He thinks he's clever by doing that. And it's because they know the power behind the argument of intelligent design. It is. That's what it is. It's denial. Great response, Jay. Jake says, let me tell you what this guy said. Love you long time says, guns are the mechanism. Intelligence can't be the mechanism. And Jake says, wrong, dude. A gun is a tool. A tool does not work without control. It's the driving force. I forget what the name of the fallacy is, actually. It's either fallacy of division or fallacy of composition, where he's applying one property of one part and applying it to the whole of another part. Obviously, the control wouldn't have, or the tool wouldn't have the same property as the control, right? The brain, the intelligence, the ability to think. If you were to cut my hand off from my brain, from my body, it obviously doesn't have the ability to think on its own. It has to be manipulated by my ability to think and to tell it to do this, that, or the other, grab So you can't, just because there is a, I don't know how to put it, there is an interactive force or a tool that might be used. It doesn't mean that tool is it shares the same property as the driving force. So I think that's just what they're not understanding. And again, that's why you run into the problem with abiogenesis. If you remove the intelligence for being able to understand and to arrange and manipulate the carbon-based compounds, then you're just dealing with the laws of physics and chemistry on their own, trying to build or establish a basic unit of life. So that's obviously something that can't happen and doesn't seem to be able to happen because they've been trying to experiment for 60, 70 years or so. You see the problem. It's open there for everybody to see. But I'm going to end the hangout, guys. I'll leave this up for you guys to check out. hurry up and get this run over with, because I don't want to be up all night. I just had some of this stuff on my head. I mean, in my head, I think that, you know what, you guys really need to keep your eye on these future Bring It Evolutionists that I'm going to be hosting, because I think it's pretty obvious that there's not a whole lot being offered from these people. I'm going to try to continue these discussions for probably till April. I'm probably going to be in a little break after April, because I've got a goal that I'm trying to reach with my weight. I started off at about 267, and my goal is to make it down to about 150 by May. Right now I'm at about 180. Today I weighed 178. So I'm going to try to stay on this path the next couple of months. And right before May, I'm going to be increasing my cardio even more, because as soon as I get off the weight dropping, I'm going to be trying to do a lot of heavy weightlifting. So I'm going to try to build the muscle back up, but I'm going to try to build the muscle back up properly without, gaining a lot of weight. So that's what my plans are in April. You guys probably won't see me around from April to May a lot. But from here on then, I mean, I want you guys to keep your eye out in these discussions, because I guarantee you will not see anyone. It doesn't matter whether they're an evolutionist. It doesn't matter whether they are a scientist, theistic evolutionist. Nobody that you're going to speak to, or you're going to see me speak to, or anybody in my room speak to, is ever going to be able to show that the mechanisms of evolution actually have that ability. And that's extremely important, because if we're going to talk about evolutionary theory being a fact, which of course is another indicator they don't understand science, because science will utilize facts to come into an inductive conclusion. But they're not going to be able to show any sort of facts or any sort of information that can show that any accumulation of changes can even build these structures. And if they can't do that, then we have no reason to believe that all of us diverge from a common ancestor. If we don't know that the accumulation of changes over time have the ability to build, Cosby and, chimpanzees who diverge from a common ancestor, for me and bananas to share a common ancestor, if you can't account for how those major anatomical differences can occur, if you don't even know if that's a real world, if that's a capable real world phenomena, we've got no reason to care about what you got to say about that, because everything you're saying is a personal belief of what you think could arrive if you allow changes to continue. So that's what you guys got to keep your eye on. That I really want you guys to keep your eye on when I'm bringing up this issue of the mechanisms of evolution, because no one is ever going to be able to show you that the accumulation of changes can account for the diversity of life here on Earth. Everything is going to be a subjective interpretation of data. That's it. So that's it, guys. I'm going to end this here. God bless.